Warren, welcome to SAP on Azure podcast. Today, as always, with Holger and myself, we will talk anything related to SAP and Microsoft Hello. Recently, we had a very good session about the security and a new document which gives an overview, an overall important security aspect that you need to reflect with Cameron. That security topic is, of course, vast and goes into many topics, and one of the subtopics, a very important one, and the first one is identity management. Now, there is also a new document going deeper and giving an overview of this identity, which Cameron was writing, and Martin was also helping and working on this as an identity expert in this area. And I would love to go through this really very interesting part, very interesting subtopic of the security with Cameron and Martin here. But before we just start, for the guys that you do not know you already, Cameron, Martin, can you please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do at Microsoft?
Cameron Gardiner. I'm based in Singapore. I've worked at Microsoft for about 18 years. I started in SQL Server, always on SAP workloads, moved into Azure as Microsoft's workload evolved to cloud. And I work on performance topics, benchmarking, and one area I've been involved in the last few years is security. And one very important pillar of security is identity and authentication.
Martin.
Yeah, Martin Raepple. Again, thanks, Goran, for inviting me again to the show. Always a big pleasure. I am in the role of a program manager at Microsoft for 6 years now. Before that, I was in a role or different roles at SAP for almost 15 years, but all in the area of security and identity and access management. I am at Microsoft. I'm as a program manager taking care for joint co-engineering programs between SAP and Microsoft. One being the joint activities all around the end of life announcement for SAP Identity Management and our joint recommendation to migrate customers who are impacted by this end of life for SAP IDM to Microsoft Entra.
Yeah. I mean, Martin, we also had you in the past as well on a different identity topics. Now I'm just wondering, so Cameron, you also wrote this another document focusing more on identity. So what's the motivation, so to say, behind, what would be the value, for the customers and partners?
Sure. So the motivation is to bring all of this content into one place and to present multiple options, because with identity and authentication, it's one of the areas where there are not just one or two options, but maybe 5 or 6 at least. And also this is an area that's changing. So SAP have end-of-lifed some of their components that are used quite extensively in the customer base, and they've announced a migration plan. So the feedback from customers was they were a little bit lost. Which way should they turn left or should they turn right? So the idea was the motivation behind this article was to bring this content into one place. It's very difficult to provide one size fits all. You should do this, you should do authentication this way. That's a very difficult thing, but we give the options and we give common options. And I think as we talk through the document, we will see. Do you want me to jump?
Yes, okay. Please, let's see it.
So I put the new document in the same place. So you go to SAP Azure Workloads and go to Concepts and Security. So the infrastructure security document here is, and the identity security document is here.
And these are the new documents, so to say, new, which were not existing right in the past. Yeah,
that is correct. So Martin has done a great job in documenting in a three-part blog series, BTP, S4HANA, and success factors. So Martin, maybe you give a little bit of a history. How long ago did you create these three?
Yeah, I think I started with this blog series beginning, what is it like? Oh, okay, actually, so when was my first publication? Yeah, in 2024 already, right? So more than a year ago, right? Yeah, no, I need to hurry up a little bit here with additional parts of the series. Yeah, it all started basically with the feedback that we received from the German-speaking SAP user group, the SAG, that also after the announcement of SAP end of life, SAP Identity Management end of life, that was beginning of 2024 at the DSAG Technology Days or Technologietage in Bremen, if I remember correctly. Then certainly there was a huge demand in the customer communities for more information, for guidance. So we documented, or we provided quite a comprehensive guide for migrating scenarios in our official documentation. In the product documentation on the Microsoft side. However, there was also we felt in the conversation with the customers the demand to get a better understanding of really step-by-step tutorial-like guidance how to migrate specific scenarios from SAP Identity Management to Entra. And this is where basically this blog series that Cameron listed here in the Identity Management section of the document takes a deeper look
and this is important part, I would say, because SAP decided to also use Microsoft Entra, and replace with their own stuff. So meaning, I mean, eventually there will be a timeout and out of support. So it is important topic for customer to know it, and also on timely to move it to the Entra, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's 2027 is the end of life, the official end of life. There is also an extended maintenance option for customers who decide to stay or to keep SAP Identity Management as the product for managing lifecycle or identity lifecycle in their SAP landscape until 2030. But after then, there's no further support.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason I put these three blogs at the very start of the documentation is I think they are really mandatory pre-reading. They're very good. This one here has the embedded video in it, which is well worth watching. But I would say to any customer who's a little confused about what the options are and what the best way forward is to start with these three blogs. They are very content rich, so I actually had to read them, watch them more than once to fully absorb everything. But I would say as a first step, go through these three, and I think things will be a lot clearer after that. And Martin, just to finish on this point, so the key topic you cover here is a customer with a scenario. They might have some on-prem, they might have some on hyperscale cloud, they might have something on RISE. It's hard to integrate this with BTP services.
Yeah, maybe if you can quickly go to part 3, I think there's a good diagram that I think gives some guidance. The first diagram, yeah, this one, yeah, the one, if you scroll up a little bit, yeah, this one. I think this shows a little bit the conceptual ideas behind migrating from from SAP Identity Management to Entra and Cloud Identity Services. Yeah, specifically the entity that's in Microsoft Entra that's called here entitlements. So entitlements is typically the area where previous customers, SAP Identity Management customers, invested or implemented a lot of their business or identity management logic in SAP Identity Management, and that basically now moves with our joint recommendation for customers to migrate to Entra. That entitlement or the responsibility for managing entitlements, which includes all of the workflows that are typically in small, medium, and large enterprises. I think no matter of the size here, for example, for giving or managing approvals to manage access to sensitive data. Up to more complex decision logic, such as, okay, if the user is in a certain cost center, there might be different approvers taking responsibility for approving such a request to access certain data or not. So there are many variants, and customers, SAP Identity Management customers who are now affected by this end of life announcement from SAP have done a lot of implementation work in those processes. And the block series basically describes how those processes can be moved over to Entra, but it still keeps responsibility of other entities in an identity management lifecycle scenario, such as, for example, role definition, authorization design, for example, in existing on-prem, such as or RISE-based SAP backend systems. Those are not touched because they exist typically for many years, and they keep all responsibility for those elements or entities in an identity lifecycle management scenario are still kept in those systems. Yeah, and the integration with Cloud Identity Services between Entra, as you just mentioned it, Cameron, basically this is driven by industry standards. Yeah, so we have a common language here called SCIM, the System for Cross Identity Management, which is a common standard in the industry to manage the lifecycle operations. Yeah, and that's unfortunately both SAP and Microsoft are supporters and implementers of this standard, and that allows us to integrate also across this whole chain here of systems. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So please start with the 3 blogs. They're very excellent. After this, authentication. So over the years, SAP has a huge number of clients. So browser-based is increasingly common, and you have a couple of options there. We won't dive into the details of SAML versus OIDC. Martin, I think OIDC is the more modern standard. SAML
Yes, it is. Yep.
is out there already since some time. SAP GUI, still very popular, still used a lot, and a lot of people prefer it. X509 certificate or Kerberos.
Yeah, I would say it's a classics, right? Which, I mean, this is also important topic. I believe, Martin, you see a lot, it's still being a lot of used. So you don't want to stop the running horse from running, right?
Yes.
We had in the past this kind of, I believe, also session on this Kerberos and using, right? If you remember.
Yes. Yes, I think we did a recording, and right, and Cameron also linked it here in the document.
Yes.
So we also talked about this topic, SAP GUI single sign-on, in actually about two approaches to this scenario. One being the usage of the relatively new SAP Secure Login Service, which is a service that runs on SAP BTP, that basically acts as an issuer of short-lived certificates that can be used as one method to do single sign-on from SAP GUI. And again, like Cameron, as you said, and Goran, I mean, SAP GUI is still the client that I would say at least let's say the admin or power users in an SAP scenario continue to use. So it won't go away. Also, I think in the mid and long term, or maybe long term, who knows? But at least midterm, I don't see SAP GUI disappearing from the scenario. So that's why it's still important. And
it is also important from a security perspective, because the admin has the rights, right? So if they use it, it has to be secured, highly secured.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I think specifically for SAP GUI, those topics such as secure network connectivity or communication, so the SNC protocol is used here by SAP to secure the communication, so encrypt it, and also support single sign-on technologies when accessing an SAP system using SAP GUI. And so in the blog series, and also in my blog series, but also in our here in the YouTube channel, we talked about both approaches, X509 as well as Kerberos. In the context of Kerberos, we also, and that's the link to the video here, we talked about how Entra or Microsoft's Entra Global Secure Access can be used, or more specifically private access, which is a sub-service or in Global Secure Access, how to make use of that service to implement multi-factor authentication for SAP GUI. Which is these days, I mean, having multi-factor in place, I think there's in the meantime authentication. It's clear that multi-factor is it's almost a standard in secure access.
It needs to move into default rather than exceptional. So for the mobile clients, the SAP Fiori app has been discontinued a few years ago, and now you use native browsers. There's a lot of content. Goran, you and Holger have done quite a bit on Power Platform and Microsoft BI. I think we have this area adequately documented. There are a lot of good videos on this. Customers do ask about other technologies, so NetWeaver Business Client, Concur, Fiori, Business Explorer. Customers are still using this, business objects. So these solutions we will cover later as and when we get demand for this.
And actually, when you say this, Cameron, Martin, you would, I guess, also see a lot. There is always kind of customer a bit behind with the newest technology, and the newest way how you could do it in a even better way. So in some sense, we do need to give them also a way how to run the existing, maybe older technology, but also in a secure way, right? So give them the path and way.
Honestly, with things like Business Explorer, it's getting really, really hard to do things like MFA, for example. I hope nobody ever asks me to do that. So, Martin, this point here, so we actually do document how to connect Entra with, say, success factors directly, but the recommended approach, that what customers should move to, is using the BTP cloud identity services.
Yes, so I think our reference architecture, that's also described in the blocks that we talked about in the beginning of this session. Our reference architecture basically says, like, for all inbound or HR-driven provisioning, which basically means if you exactly look at this diagram here, you basically see that all inbound provisioning activities, so starting basically from typical HR processes such as onboarding of a new employee, those events are captured by the corresponding connector in Entra to success factors. So actually, mainly two of them. One is that one provisions users directly into Entra, so basically creates cloud-only users. The connector used in this blog post and in this diagram is the success factors to Active Directory connector that basically first provisions the new employee that has been onboarded in SuccessFactors to Active Directory, and then from Active Directory it's synced back with the Entra provisioning agent and a cloud sync setup back to Entra, so that you basically then have, for the new employee being onboarded in SuccessFactors, you have an identity created in Active Directory as well as in Entra. And from there, we provision then the user all the way to Cloud Identity Services through the SAP Cloud Identity Services connector. So all of these connectors that I just mentioned are pre-built, ready-to-use connectors. You may want to modify the settings of those according to your needs, but mainly you can just use them more or less as they are.
Yeah.
I saw customers, just one last comment. I saw customers provisioning some information from Cloud Identity Services back to SuccessFactors, such as, for example, the global user ID that's created in Cloud Identity Services, which I just learned recently from a joint customer is a key entity or attribute of the user when it comes to the integration with Joule and Copilot. So there may be some way back of so-called attribute write back from Cloud Identity Services, which is not shown in this diagram, back to SuccessFactors, but all of the inbound flow, that's connected directly between SuccessFactors and Entra.
And basically what we see here, I think it's important that, I mean, we don't force customer to go to the, I don't know, only one kind of solution, but actually also integrate it in order to span the different technology stacks, right?
Right.
So it's not a disruptive kind of approach. So
no.
Yeah.
As Cameron said, I think in the beginning there are always there's not only just one option for all of the topics here, but certainly there are some, let's say, recommended. There are recommendations, guidance, typically in the format of reference architectures, that we jointly develop as in our SAP and Microsoft programs or initiatives that we jointly drive, and those hopefully help customers to find their path through these options.
Yep. Okay. Automatic synchronization of attributes. So, Martin, we have a late breaking functionality released, I think, end of September, was it?
Yes. Yeah, that's basically covered in the third part of the blog series for Identity and Access Management, and it basically now allows us to not only provision a user or the user entities between Entra and Cloud Identity Services, but also groups, and even more important, the membership of users to these groups, because those, in the end, influence or drive authorizations and assignments to roles in SAP's backends. So whatever that is, it could be the assignment of a user to a role collection in the SAP Business Technology Platform. This can be the assignment of a user to a PFCG role in an S/4HANA system. So can be almost anything. But the prerequisite is certainly that the assignment of a user to a group in Entra leads exactly to that assignment in the connected SAP backends that are connected via the Cloud Identity Services. And that's a really important feature that's since September GA. It was, I think, there in a private preview in June already, and many customers have tested it and obviously successful, so that we called it GA in September.
Okay, so just on this point, so there are some diagrams here. And one is showing it from more of an SAP point of view, and one is showing it from more of a Microsoft point of view, but important to take a look at both of those. Okay.
So this one is the classics, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So yeah, Martin, I think we had also on this, we had a session on this one, if you can tell more. I mean, again, it goes into area of doing the classics, but still very important one.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, go on. This one actually, and Cameron, this one actually combines the classic, so SAP GUI, with quite a very modern, from a security perspective, with quite a modern approach to security, which at Microsoft we refer to as zero trust. Yeah, you may have heard about, and our audience here in the podcast, I think I'm pretty sure have also heard about this topic. And in the industry, it's well, it's described under many aspects, but at Microsoft we have a very clear understanding, I think, of what zero trust means in terms of also mapping this concept to specific concrete technologies and products in Entra. One of them being the Global Secure Access Service that I mentioned before. And here in this blog post, we combine basically the classic SAP GUI with this still relatively new service in Entra, Global Secure Access, to do, for example, one important aspect of global secure of zero trust, of the zero trust concept, or implement zero trust in secure access with SAP GUI, which is the so-called continuous access evaluation, which basically means that in an ongoing session, so technical session between a SAP GUI client and the SAP system, with Global Secure Access, you can determine if in between that session, for example, the user has been, for example, revoked or blocked access by the administrator, so that you do not depend on the lifetime of a session, which means like before the user hasn't stopped the session and reinitiated, the client gets aware of the event that happened. So the administrator stopped access of the user for whatever reason, or it has been, blocked by some risk assessment that the user suddenly has, changed the IP address from US to Asia, which is a kind of suspicious event, right? Many things can happen. So with Global Secure Access, we are able to even more secure SAP GUI access with regards to this important zero trust concept of continuous access evaluation. Yeah.
Super.
So just for the audience, so what this means is somebody can be running SAP GUI on their laptop. The communication channel between SAP GUI and the SAP server is as if you were running a VPN, but you don't have the hassle of updating the software, maintaining the profiles, and remembering to connect and disconnect and all of this. over and on top of that, you get single sign-on, and you have single sign-on with MFA for SAP GUI. So quite a good solution, a compelling solution. And like Martin said, you're not, your timeout is not driven by the session state. The timeout is, the administrator can cancel a session. So a good feature. Now, everyone's favorite topic, the end of life of some SAP products. So Martin, we had an announcement. When did SAP actually announce this?
I think we were back in February 2024, if I remember correctly. It was at the SAP DSAG event in Bremen, where this end of life announcement has been made.
Yeah, but it was kind of easy to foresee because Java is being effectively shut down.
Exactly.
So this was an obvious step, but SAP has, there are a lot of customers using this stuff out there. So I think you have these blogs that show a migration path, and we have an announcement ourselves about the recommended way.
Right. The very first link here in your list, Cameron, the one that says migrate identity management, that's our official product documentation, which is also a very comprehensive and good guide for customers to start with. I would actually recommend start reading that document first when you are affected with this end of life. So if you are an SAP Identity Management customer, I think I would recommend to start reading that document and then maybe go from here to, for example, to the blog post series, to understand in more depth what it means also from an implementation perspective, because those blog posts are really like tutorial type step-of-step guides, or just follow also the references here in this Microsoft Docs article, to
exactly. And definitely, and when we are calling out, actually they should start on time, right? Because time is really running fast, and you need to. I mean, it's a newer technology for many of the customer, and it's good to be prepared with the many nuances.
I mean, we just had a great session at the SAP TechEd conference just recently in Berlin, where I saw quite a massive attendance in that session. So obviously customers are right now either still in the decision-making process, or maybe already have started implementing their migration. So there's a huge demand these days, for information, for guidance, for actually also, guidance and implementation guidance on real-world scenarios. And just as a teaser, we will also have another hands-on session in a week in end of November at the SAP Security Forum in Walldorf.
Great.
And we are going to have another hands-on session on identity migration to Entra at the upcoming DSAG Technology Days in February, I think, in Hamburg.
Around that time. I mean, actually, just to wrap it a little bit up, I mean, there are still additional links, but you have a related content. So Martin is really you're a factory to produce those blogs and documents. But when I think, Cameron, you did really an amazing job just to summarizing such a complex topic and divide it. So it is, I see it really a huge value for the customer just to orient themselves, right?
Yeah, I hope this brings a lot of loose ends together. If there's one thing customers can take away from this session is please at least move to SSO, ideally SSO with MFA for any SAP application. And really, it's not a good idea to be, if your SAP system is using username and passwords, the SAP app layer, I think please go through the article and think about making some changes to what you're doing. For SAP to be relying on username, password in this day and age is not optimal.
Yeah, and at least they should do the minimum of the work, you know, even at least for the start, right? So I think you had some interesting quote from former vice president of the Microsoft, Steve Ballmer. I remember you were mentioning.
Yes, Steve once said you don't need to be the fastest antelope on the grass plains in Africa. You just have to make sure you're not the slowest. So I think work on ideally SSO with MFA and start early on the migration away from the legacy SAP
correct to
products.
have on time also from a product supportability side as well. Yeah.
Yep. And the documents, what I would do if I was a customer, I would take some of the diagrams that are embedded in Martin's blog. I would take that diagram and I would customize, alter, add, move, change, move the squares around as needed, but use those as a basis for a design, and then circulate that around Microsoft, SAP, and start implementing that.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, guys. I mean, really good content, really important one. Security is a must-have, and I see many new stuff are being kind of cooked. So I believe we will see you again on the podcast, you know, with the newest updates, you know. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Thanks so much, Cameron.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See you.
Bye.